I suffered so much until I was 30. I bought disability insurance when I was 26, and I made $6 million when I was 26. I lost it when I was 28. I've made and lost a fortune. I've had my picture in magazines for my entrepreneurial success. So I've tried fame, I've tried money, I've gotten married, and I'm still fucking miserable. Like, I did all the stuff you're supposed to do. Like, I've got the BMW.
Right. This is supposed to equal happiness.
And eventually you learn, you can have happiness and peace no matter what happens in the world. And ultimately, biohacking is that.
Well, there's all these studies that red meat, there's a correlation with more cancer and colon cancer. Like, what about that?
And it's such a big conversation right now. It is the Ozempic conversation. But someone with your knowledge and your background on what do you think of something like that?
I have something for you and listeners, if it's all right to drop it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, please.
Oldish, the show where age-old questions meet new-age answers. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Dave Asprey, welcome to Oldish.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, you
Dude,
are.
thank you so much for being here.
We're so excited to have you here, man. This is awesome.
This set is making me feel inadequate.
It's inadequate.
Is set envy a thing?
How is it? I mean, it can be.
Hey, I get it, because if I wasn't here, I would definitely feel FOMO for not being here, and I would envy this.
This is our new home too, so thank you so much. We've been loving being in this space. The energy feels good, and we're just really happy to have you in it. All 6'4" of you, might I add. You fill this space, so there's nothing to feel intimidated
You definitely
by.
fill that chair.
I haven't hit my head yet.
It's coming. Yeah.
So let's start here, because there's so much to you. How did you start? No.
I used to be
so
fat.
much to you. See, it's a height thing. I'm small over here. Dave's big. But
We've lost Dave. He's already in the car going home. He's like, screw this place, man. Oldish sucks.
In terms of being the father of biohacking, I know,
Wait, okay. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. What? So biohacking, that term, I swear to God, sounds like a threat from another country to me. Like, please explain what biohacking is.
So I've got you. You're engaged.
Yes, I'm in.
So here's what it is. It's the idea that you can change the environment around you and inside of you to have control of your own biology. You're the one hacking yourself. Because there's all kinds of things that your body does, even your unconscious does, that you cannot see, but we can measure. And your body listens to the world around you. So we just set you up for success so that you have more energy, you have more peace, you live longer than you're supposed to, you don't act like a jerk all the time, your libido's where you want it, you sleep well. And this is a really disruptive term. I made it to be that way. In 2011, I wrote about it and published the first definition of it. And in 2018, Webster's added it to the English language as a new word.
And your name
I read that about you. I was like, stop it right now.
How does that feel? Like, is that surreal to you, even though you're like, I've accomplished all these things? That's one of those cool accomplishments where you're like, dude, I will forever live.
I'm the father of.
I coined the term.
It doesn't do that. I was a fat computer hacker. I used to weigh 300 pounds.
But you don't anymore.
I'm 6%
now you're
body
ripped.
Fat, right? Yeah, it's
you have a
ridiculous.
bottle of water next to you on the floor, and you are in the dictionary.
But like, I never started the whole biohacking thing to be well known. I mean, you would know. Like, being well known has a downside. It has an upside too.
Oh, it totally
a
does.
big downside. And as a computer hacker, I erased my identity before I started biohacking. Like,
Did you really?
couldn't tell where I lived. My car was registered to a ghost company and all this stuff because it was a game, right? And then I said, man, if I'm going to make biohacking a thing, I'm going to have to be the face of it. So I intentionally said I'll do it, but I'm not doing this to be like lauded or worshipped or to be a guru. I suffered so much until I was 30. High risk of stroke and heart attack, chronic fatigue syndrome, arthritis. Just the list goes on and on and on. And I bought disability insurance when I was 26, and I made $6 million when I was 26. I lost it when I was 28. Oops. But that whole experience was just one of pain and anxiety and just the voice in my head saying, you must not be that smart. What's wrong with you? You're not trying hard enough, and going to the gym 6 days a week, 90 minutes a day, trying to lose weight and not losing it. and just feeling like a failure. And so I started my blog when I had 2 young kids. I had a VP level job for a public company with stock options making $250,000 a year. And this was pre-Biden dollars, so this was like real money. And someone's
do you want to laugh at that? I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't want to start a company even. I wanted to start a blog, and my goal is 5 people are not going to go through what I went through. And I studied for years. I learned the art of longevity from my elders. Guys in their 80s running a nonprofit taught me everything and then asked me to help them run the nonprofit in Palo Alto. So this was like my passion and my self-preservation. I just wanted someone who's 20 years old like I was, who is tired and fat and anxious and just like afraid. 'Cause like I can push the pedal in my car, the accelerator, further to the floor, but once it's pegged to the floor and the car's slowing down, you're helpless.
Yeah.
So my goal was just to share knowledge and to teach people.
That's amazing.
All it's ever been.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like I think so many people, it's so easy for people to gain knowledge and do so well at things. And then they just kind of keep it to themselves and they sort of hoard it and they make their life about it. And I think it's amazing when people find those things and they're way more eager almost to share them than to find them themselves. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. What was the thought that you had that you said, I'm doing all these things, pedal is to the floor, I have money, things are on the outside going okay, but yet I can't get done what I want to get done. What thought did you have that changed your trajectory?
There were a couple of things. One was when I'd really committed to losing weight. I've also had 3 knee surgeries before I was 23 because I would just walk and my knee would just fold, my kneecap would pop out, and like all that stuff. You're like, what? Like, how could you be?
Was that
Was that
from
because
weight?
of weight? Yeah.
It was because I was fat, because of environmental toxins and just injuries from playing soccer, right?
Got you.
And my body wouldn't heal right because I had metabolic problems. And I was sitting at Carl's Jr. with my friends, and they're all having double Western bacon cheeseburgers and fries. And I'm like, I'll have the chicken salad with no dressing. Oh, and no chicken because calories. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. I work out more than all my friends combined. I eat less than any of them. And I'm the fattest one here. And at first the thought came into my mind, it's probably because I'm not trying hard enough and I'm eating too much lettuce. But then I kind of recognized the absurdity of that. Actually, it just doesn't freaking work. 90 minutes a day of exercise should be giving me results. And it wasn't. So I just said, all right, I'm going to have to try things that I don't believe because the things I believe are wrong. Otherwise they would work.
Right,
there has to be something missing. And so I became curious and I just committed to only doing things that worked, and I would stop doing the things that didn't work. Right. And since that time, I actually became a raw vegan after that, which really broke my biology. And I've tried lots of other diets and learned why and what they do. And thank God I was mentored by people 3 times my age. Because talk about wisdom.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful. When I have an 88-year-old guy, my friend Mike, was calling me when I'm 26, super excited at 11:30 at night with more energy than I had. I'm like,
right.
How's this possible?
Yeah.
What was it? What was the secret sauce?
Well, he was one of the early leaders in the longevity movement. So the things that make old people young make young people exceptionally smart and fast and powerful and strong. And that was why biohacking had to exist because, look, when I was 20, did I really care about longevity? No, I cared about getting laid. I cared about my job, my career, my friends, making a mark in the world, all this stuff that's normal and healthy. So even health, no one cares about health unless you're sick. It's always, it's kind of important.
Well, not when you're young too. You feel like my health is not an issue. Right. Yeah, you feel like a superhero until all of a sudden you're faced with like the reality that you're going to get older and all of a sudden things start falling apart. I went through that.
Well, imagine if that happened to you before you were 30. That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
So I'm just so happy that these guys taught me this stuff because I got my health back. And then I'm like, I'm not stopping. I'm going to upgrade things. Right. And that was when biohacking got really interesting. And I started, Bulletproof, which has done hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and became a large brand. I was removed from the company a few years ago. It's been bought by an investment bank. I have nothing to do with it. By the way, Danger Coffee is my new coffee company because who knows what you might do. Just get
Which I had and greatly enjoyed, by the way.
Sweet.
I'm a coffee guy. So for those who don't know Bulletproof, it is coffee where you put grass-fed butter and MCT oil or one or the other?
You take both of them.
Okay.
And
How did you
people-
find this?
Oh my God.
Yeah, how did this come to be? Because
It's just like one day I like
Sharon and I
grass-fed
are
butter.
drinking bulletproof
We do
coffee now
bulletproof.
every morning.
Nice. Well, we're going to get you on Danger Coffee also.
Okay, yeah, please.
Let's
so
do that.
you can still put butter in there. But here's what happened. I've not only gone to Carl's Jr. and had that experience, I also was briefly married in my 20s. And it just ended really poorly. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I've made and lost a fortune. Had my picture in magazines for my entrepreneurial success. So I've tried fame, I've tried money, I've gotten married, and I'm still fucking miserable. Right. So like I did all the stuff you're supposed to do. Like I've got the BMW.
Right. This is supposed to equal happiness.
And so I really started when I was about 30. I just said, I'm going to go do this personal development stuff. I did holotropic breathing. And now a lot of people have heard of this. At the time, it was very rare. Even in 1999, I went to Peru and said, I'm going to try ayahuasca. And just to be clear,
Wow,
I'm
in
not
99.
a huge,
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And I went down there and I asked at the guest house where I was staying, and they go, you're white. I go, yeah, I noticed. And they said, it's only for locals. Like, you won't like it. And I said, no, I've done my preparation. I know what it is. So I found a real shaman, trained in the jungle, and I had a ceremony, and it was probably beneficial. Actually, it might have been too much for me at the time. But I think ayahuasca is way overused, especially in the US, and it has a much bigger spiritual downside, potentially, depending on who you do it with, than some other psychedelics. So it's one I approach with respect and caution, rather than like, yeah, I'm going to go try it with this guy I just met.
Totally.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
People are using it to target others.
Yeah,
So-
I had an experience with it. We both did, and you definitely see sort of the cultish side of it, and it's like that the people, from what I saw, tend to be using that now as like it's the new cool thing to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm clean of everything else, but now I go and do this every weekend.
Yeah.
It's like you're way fucking overusing.
We had a beautiful experience,
Yeah.
like what it gave us, but we did witness people abusing the medicine, and that was really sad to see.
I've done it twice in my life, and both times, fortunately, with really well qualified shamans. And I've received shamanic initiation training, and so I went and I did that, and I went to the Andes and the Himalayas, and I studied meditation with masters in different parts of the world. I'm a computer science guy. I don't really think any of this stuff is real, except I had this experience on holotropic breathing, and I tried ayahuasca very early in my journey. And I just realized I'm missing a huge slice of reality that I just didn't think was real, and it's everything below the neck. My brain is fixed, but I don't know how to read any of this stuff. So I started learning, and I ended up connecting with these various masters from different disciplines. And part of that journey, I decided to go to Mount Kailash, which is the holiest mountain in the world in Western Tibet. You can't go there now. And it's the Mount Olympus of the West. So if you're Buddhist or Hindu, it's where the gods live. And it takes 5 days in a 4-wheel drive to get there. And then you walk a 26-mile circuit around this mountain that goes up to 18,000 feet. It's brutal. And I went there when it was 10 degrees below zero because, well, I don't know. My timing was off. So
My God. Brutal.
there's 8 people on the mountain, and I'm just feeling like crap. And there's 30-mile-an-hour winds. And I'm thinking, I might actually die here. Like, who knows? A lot of people come here to die, but it was miserable. And I go to this little mud hut, and the only thing they can cook with is yak dung. So they're burning yak dung to heat water. And this little woman...
Sounds delightful.
Right,
by
I
the
was
way.
going to say,
Yeah.
Airbnb is just
Wow.
like knocking down the
Killing it.
door of this new concept.
This woman, they're all like 4 feet tall in Tibet. So this like woman who's half my height brings me a bowl of yak butter tea. I'm like, ew.
Right,
But I
okay.
drank it, and 5 minutes later, I'm like, my brain turned on. You're supposed to feel like you're dying at this altitude. I just felt so good, better than I'd felt in years.
Wow.
I had been exposed to toxic mold, which was one of the reasons I had chronic fatigue syndromes. I later found out I had brain damage from toxic mold. So it just turned me on, and I'm like, something good is happening. And I came back to Silicon Valley after that trip, and I bought some tea and some butter, and it tasted like crap, and it didn't work. So I bought $1,000 worth of different teas. None of them worked. So I bought 25 different butters, and 2 of them worked. Oh, grass-fed butter.
Yeah.
And then because I ran a longevity nonprofit, we already knew about MCT oil and the fact that it stops Alzheimer's disease. Something I could never say when I ran Bulletproof, because that would be a medical claim for food. But now that I have nothing to do with that company,
You can say
can
that.
say that.
MCT oil stops Alzheimer's.
in phase 2 clinical trials. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So it's metabolically beneficial. And
wait, and why is that information not out?
It's in some of my books because we have free speech in books, but companies who make food products or supplements are not allowed to say
they don't want to be held responsible.
Oh, they're not allowed to make medical claims. They're not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a medical claim. Like, well, 10 studies support the fact that whatever this thing is has this effect. That's not a medical claim. It's just saying, like, if you don't eat it, what's going to happen? Or if you do eat it, what's likely to happen? Well,
right.
Wow.
But in the U.S., it's very limited. So I always follow the rules and the laws and things. And but I can say, I know this stuff works. I know it turns my brain on. So I added them both. And this was hundreds of different experiments. And I tried it with tea. And then I realized I'd quit coffee for 5 years because coffee would give me like jitters and make me cranky. And I had 1 cup of coffee after that trip. And I'm like, oh my God, my love coffee.
Right. The love affair is back.
Yeah.
I've missed you. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm cured. And the next day I had a different coffee and it trashed me. I'm like, I didn't get allergic to coffee overnight. It's different coffee. And anyone who smokes pot knows, like, different strains of cannabis do different things.
Yeah.
So I really got into coffee agriculture. And I realized coffee has mold contamination in the U.S. in a major way. So I found out how to solve that problem. And eventually my first blog post in Biohacking was, here's the recipe for bulletproof coffee. It's mold-free coffee and it's grass-fed butter and MCT oil. And it turns out you couldn't really buy mold-free coffee, and most MCT oil would give you disaster pants. So I made better ones. And
Did you say disaster pants?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Such a great word.
It's a medical term. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
You say, okay, so biohacking and disaster.
I think our 2-year-old has that sometimes.
Exactly. So all this happened, and it was just this curiosity thing. And I'm drinking it. I'm losing weight. My brain works. I've got my energy back. I've recovered from toxic mold and chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I just shared the knowledge and then said, well, what if I could, start selling products here? And it was just really organic. And I didn't do anything you're supposed to do to start a company. I was just sharing info. And then I didn't build a list and do all the internet marketing stuff. And finally I said, well, okay, I've got this. And I suddenly was growing really nicely. And then I ended up growing it to $27 million in revenue and raising $90 million in venture capital and building a $100 million a year brand.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. All of this sounds like you're fascinating and it's so impressive. And it's all in the pursuit of happiness. You have this curiosity, constantly asking questions.
It wasn't all in that. In the beginning of this, it was done out of fear of being out of control of my biology. Because like the feeling, okay, you're in your mid-20s. Before I was 30, I was attending board meetings of a $36 billion company. I had this like badass job and it was so exciting, but I'm sitting there and I can't remember anything.
Yeah.
Someone in this room is going to know that I'm almost going to fall asleep and I'm like biting my cheek till it bleeds and I've had all the coffee there is. And I'm like, just trying to focus and it won't work.
Yeah.
So when you feel like your body betrays you, that creates fear. And so I've long past that fear. Now it's about happiness. But before it was more about like, I don't want to be in a situation where like I can't count on my leg to not fold when I walk. I'm fat all the time, no matter what I eat, and I can't pay attention, and I'm emotionally reactive. You can push my triggers because I'm malnourished because I'm not eating the right stuff. And now, as I've gone through this whole journey, it's about happiness and joy and really peace. And I've made and lost huge amounts of money. Bulletproof just was sold a few months ago for about 10% of what it was worth when I was in charge of the company. And I'm married twice. I consciously uncoupled about 3 years ago, and I'm good friends with my former wife, and my kids are thriving. And eventually you learn, you can have happiness and peace no matter what happens in the world. And ultimately biohacking is that. You have so much energy that no one can trigger you. And that's what peace really looks like. And that's what I've developed. I'm sure I can be triggered, but it's pretty rare.
We talk about this all the time, or I know I do. It's something that I harp on. Like I had a real moment in life where I realized, because I grew up a control freak. I wanted to try and keep control of as much as possible. And I one day really had a conscious moment of realizing like, God, the only thing that I have control over is the person I choose to be while I'm on this crazy ride of life. And what you're talking about with biohacking is part of that. It's like, those are the things you have control over. I have control over the way I take care of myself, the things that I eat, the way I take care of my body and my mind and my soul, and the person I create I choose to be every day. but you don't know what else is going to happen. All of the craziness of life, all the separations, and the people that you do get along with and you don't get along with, and the companies that are taken and become something different. And so it's so inspiring to hear you, because what you are doing is exactly what we preach on a regular basis.
I think all humans are wired to do that. And in the world of biohacking, I teach that we have these mitochondria. There's these little bacteria that are inside our cells, and we all learn about them in 7th grade. And honestly, like, who cares, right? Except, well, there's way more of them than there are cells in your body. And they're constantly watching the environment to figure out, is it scary? Like, is there enough food? What time of day is it? And they don't just watch the environment. They decide what to do. And they can make inflammation. They can make heat or electricity or sex hormones or melatonin. Right. And so they're in charge of your biology.
Right. And they're just waiting for the cues from you.
Well, they're waiting for the cues from the world around you. And they vaguely listen to you. You can go into these altered states with psychedelics or with neurofeedback, or you go to Joe Dispenza breathwork thing. And all of a sudden, those states is when you're communicating with your body and seeing what it sees in the world around you. And you realize there's a separate consciousness. Some people call it the ego. I think it's just your mitochondria doing their thing. But I figured out what the order of operations is. Like, how does your body read the world? And they're all F words. The first one is fear. So this isn't you deciding it's fearful. Fear is a feeling, and feelings happen before thoughts.
Yeah.
So your body decides it's scary because this network of sensors once felt something scary like that, and it puts you into fear. So that takes all your energy. So run away from, kill, or hide. The second F word is food. Let's eat everything. Because all life on Earth has gone through famines. And so the third F word, all life has to do to stay around. Like, this is trees, jellyfish, everyone does this. The third F word, what would that be to stay around forever? You guys know that one? Fear, food. Like, you have to have multiple generations.
Future?
No, like reproduction kind of stuff.
Family?
Oh, fertility.
Fertility.
No one dropped the F-bomb. Dude, I was setting you guys up for a failure.
Fertility. I'm trying. I'm like,
I'm trying to be smart here, Dave. I'm really trying to be smart over here, Dave, and say the right thing.
No one's ever said this is really hurting. God. I'm judging you right now so hard.
I just started sweating. I don't know what to tell you. I just panicked for a little moment, but we're good.
So fear, food, fertility, and then friend. So after that, there's another one is forgiveness, which is what you do just to be less afraid.
Yeah.
And this is what the cells in your body want to do. But it's really hard to focus on fertility, which it's a source of nourishment, like sacred sexual interaction, sacred intimacy with a partner nourishes our souls as much as food does. It's really important.
Okay, so let me ask you that, because there's so much here. If you don't have that, if someone is going through a relationship where that part of the relationship is gone, or they can't find a mate, what are they missing?
You should probably like swipe more. That's going to fix
Oh my God. Tinder. They're missing Tinder.
No, that's not true. What are they? What
are they missing? Randy refuses that answer.
I refuse that.
We try again.
In terms of longevity,
okay,
right? Like what? How does that actually affect someone?
It's missing from our conversations. And that's why I always have a speaker in my biohacking conference about like masculine, feminine, or about sex, but just more tantra or consciousness. And 20% of people report that they meet God during orgasm at least some of the time. And you're not going to know if your partner does that because they're just laying there twitching like they always do, but they're having a mystical experience.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
And
I've never heard that before.
Would you tell someone, would you be like, I'm sorry, whatever you just did, I just met God? Like, you'd sound like you're crazy.
I wouldn't, but I've never.
I call out for God, but I've never met him.
Oh my God. That was, I've said that before, but I didn't mean it. I didn't think I meant it.
Yeah, God shows up.
Were you faking it, Brian?
Oh my God.
Damn it,
Is there something I can help you with? Oh my God.
Yeah. I think we've got some work to do.
Yeah, Jesus.
The goal is to meet God.
But what a vehicle. So intimacy, sex can be a vehicle to
transformation.
Experience God.
Yeah, absolutely. And to experience the highest states that humans are capable of. And that's what Tantra or Conscious King teaches you, where you can be so embodied in your own body that you you go into altered states. And most people who've had really good sex are just like, I was so out of my mind. We tried to find words. It was blissful.
Right.
I left my body and all those kinds of things.
Visuals of fireworks and all the stuff. Right.
And possibly that random person you picked up online is going to do that for you if you're very lucky. But that's unlikely. So it's actually a skill, just like you might go to the gym with your partner. And I'm going to get to your question if you don't have a partner. So you get to the gym and you learn skills, right? It's the same thing. So you can learn intimacy skills, which brings both partners into these like really, they're psychedelic-like states. And people don't talk about this at dinner parties and things, but it's a really important thing because your body, it's craving safety first, or peace, actually. Those are both the opposite of fear. And then it's craving nourishment from food. And after it has those, it's like, I have to connect. And it thinks it's going to reproduce, or at least have a chance of reproducing, right? But if it doesn't do that, there's a longing and an angst that sits in there. And when you not just do the deed, but you do the deed in full consciousness, it nourishes your energetics as much as the food you ate nourished you. So what do you do if you don't have this? Well, you can learn how to energetically love yourself. I'm not talking about masturbation, or you can do that too. But I'm talking about like the energetics. How would you connect with a partner that you just absolutely love and you're holding space for and you're making safety for and you're adoring? How do you do that to yourself, whether or not you're touching yourself, right? That is an advanced skill. And so you work on that. And the funny thing is when you work on that and you work on, in fact, I've coached people on this, you work on being more connected and respectful of and loving of your first chakra, in other words, your genitals.
Through meditation, through breathing.
Or it can be through like sacred touching. The tantric people will tell you, men, here's the specific practices, and women, they're different. But if you're sitting there going, I don't have any love, therefore I don't like my junk, right? Or you think it's repellent, it is repellent to other people.
Well, especially if you're calling it junk.
So
I mean, that is
Right.
sort of the first.
But that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So if you have a judgment of yourself in the situation that you're in, you're not self-loving.
Absolutely. If you're not self-loving, it's hard to attract that into your life. And I have so many friends in their 30s, and a lot of the guys, they're starting to have ED. Partly that's low testosterone from environmental stuff, but a lot of the time it's porn or it's just self-judgment. And like you have to reconnect with, the root chakra. And with women, same thing. Like they think it's gross or it smells bad or it's not pretty or something. And, if I can go so far on your show.
Yeah, you can.
Please do.
Yeah.
You can.
When you're naked, all vaginas are really, really interesting if you're a guy. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I've never met one I didn't like. I don't know any guy.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how it is.
I've never met one I didn't like.
And so women are like, oh my gosh, it's not perfect. And we're like, it's lovely. Like,
Right.
we love that.
What is perfect?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
There's no such thing. And so, but I can say in reverse, just to have some humor and some science, some scientists took pictures of 1,000 different scrotums and showed them to women and asked them to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 as ugly and 10 as attractive. None of them were over 5.
I was going to say,
So
all ones, like that's, Right. There's literally.
That's just not beauty.
No, I say that about the male body. And like, I have conversations all the time and I go, you know what? Like,
but that's not self-loving. That's what Dave is talking about, is actually thinking that way. Can stop the self-loving.
If I'm looking at a picture though of a male body next to a female body, I can't just like.
So the female is more interesting, but look, if you're looking at Frank Zane or some guy who's like really done the work and like, wow, like that's a work of art. It's not a work of art I want to go be intimate with, but you could just have like a healthy respect for that.
Right.
Got it.
Like if you, I got to know Gerard Butler. Right, you probably met him and stuff. That guy is ripped beyond belief. 300 and stuff. Yeah. And like, I respect the hell out of that, right? And like, no intimate thoughts, but it's just like, wow, what a work of art.
You can appreciate it.
It's like chiseled in a way that I would have to do a lot of work to do, and I'm willing to do that work, to be honest.
It's funny, women are so much better at that than men. Like, I can absolutely look at another woman's body, naked or not, and be like, that is beautiful. She is beautiful.
Women are more attractive, and let's face it.
Oh, well, you said it, Dave, not me.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not a hate of my own body, but it's a female body to me is so much more attractive than a male body.
It's really funny because even though you say that, so many women have body issues, and now so many guys have them too. Yeah. And part of the answer to this stuff is you learn to just absolutely feel into and turn on all the energy sensors in your body. This is a meditative practice. And as you do it, if you're doing it right with the right teachings and knowledge, like you'll turn on your vagina or your male organs, whatever. And when they get turned on, it's not about just sexual stuff. Where do you have the most nerves in the body?
Right.
And if you look at this, and a lot of this comes from my neuroscience clinic, but if you look at like old carvings and statues, they have giant hands, giant feet, and giant lips and giant eyes. And that's because that's where we have the most nerves. So when you're really connected to the world around you, you sense the world through your heart, through your eyes, but also through your hands and through your feet and through your genitals. And it turns out a lot of intuitive feelings start there. And when I say this, a lot of people nod. They're like, oh my gosh, like I felt it in my gut. But if you really pay attention, you felt it before you felt it in your gut.
Yeah, you felt it somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Right, when you really
There's
know.
a tingle.
Yeah,
And
a little
especially
tingle.
when you meet someone, it's not like, oh, like, you know, she's hot. It's more like, what's going on?
Right.
It's a different
Right.
feeling because it's not that your brain thought it. It's your body sensed it. And then it informed the brain if you've learned to pay attention to your body. And I had no attention to my body when I started, 21 years ago. So I've learned, those kinds of things because that's what they teach in ancient Ayurveda and ancient traditional Chinese medicine. Like this is old knowledge. And because I'm lazy, and laziness is a virtue, just to be really straightforward. And if you don't believe me, why did you drive to work? You could have walked.
Yeah.
You're lazy too. Like I use tools to get stuff done.
Right, yeah.
And I'm just blunt about that. I decided that it was going to take way more than a lifetime of meditating for hours a day to get anything done. And I've done breath work for meditation for 90 minutes a day for a couple of years in a row and breath work every morning for 5 years. So I'm willing to do the work, but I just don't want to.
Yeah.
So I started hooking computers up to my head. About 11 years ago, I opened 40 Years of Zen, which is my neuroscience clinic. And in 5 days, we teach your brain to be in the same state as someone who's done a daily meditation practice for more than 20 years, usually up to 40.
In how many days, sorry?
5 days.
In 5 days.
Pretty intense days. No, I'm not going to lie. Like we've got 4 patents in neuroscience, either granted or filed, and about 1,500 people have come through, and they say this is like the best plant medicine journey ever without the plant medicine.
Wow.
I think we should all do this.
We should
I think
absolutely
we should
do
all
this.
go and do this.
This sounds amazing.
It's
Tell me more.
it's my highest and best thing, and the kind of people who go through there are usually entrepreneurs or CEOs or influencers or pro athletes or something, and they're people who affect 1,000 or 10,000 or millions of people, and some of the wealthy families on the planet. And it's to raise consciousness quickly. And the entire first 3 days of this is something I call the reset process. And I'm working on that for my next book. But it's the forgiveness word. And it's how do you forgive yourself for all the stuff that you judge yourself about?
Right.
And forgiveness isn't like, I'm sorry, or I forgive you. Forgiveness is just being completely 100% at peace. And it's easy for me to look at someone and say, hey, yeah, I forgive you. But you just thought about forgiveness.
Right,
and when
right,
you say that, if you feel your heart's like, no, you didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you have
I don't believe that.
a lie detector on your brain guiding you into these states that Zen masters know, if you try to say you forgave someone who pissed you off at some point in your life, the lie detector gets quiet.
So
And
it's
all
like
of a sudden-
having a bullshit meter like
Yes.
permanently attached
You
to your
cannot
head.
bullshit yourself.
Right.
So I just spent
I
6
love
months
that.
of my life doing that work, which is like, it's normally a 5-day process. So I don't know how many lifetimes of meditation that is, but for me to be able to go through the stuff I've been through in the last few years alone, ending a 17-year marriage peacefully and with love, moving countries from Canada to Austin, and going through, getting kicked out of the company you started and all that kind of stuff, and to just have peace. What it really comes down to is what the Buddhists teach. And it's that the first state of awakening is empathy. You can feel other people's pain, but it's not a very high state. Because now you feel everyone's pain all the time, and it's
Right.
going to take you out of your own state. So now you're kind of a victim of that. And a lot of people get caught up in that. They see someone else, they're like, oh, I feel everyone's pain. I'm like, well, that's not a very effective way to be.
Right.
But it's
Confusing.
better than being numb. And so the next level that everyone is working towards is compassion. And now we're sounding all like, I got to pull out my prayer beads, whatever. No, compassion, it just means that you automatically wish other people well before you judge them. So it's a skill you practice. So it's just, oh, look, I want everyone to be happy. And it's not, I only want to be happy because I like them. It just happens. And that is way more advanced than empathy. And then you can choose to feel someone's pain, but you don't have to because you already wished them well before you felt their pain. And the final state is resilience, or equanimity, they call it. And that's the monk meditating in a hurricane. It just says, I choose my state and nothing on earth can take me out of it. And that's what I'm working on. And that's what I'm working to teach people. It just so happens if your cells work really well because you ate the right stuff, it's easier to maintain control of your state.
Right.
And this isn't about like control freak stuff. This is about choosing to be kind and not allowing some jerk who you're thinking is a jerk to make you act in a way that you regret later.
To change
right?
who you are.
It's a state of being.
Yeah.
It's a way to live.
And it makes sense. The more harmonious the body and everything is, the easier it is to stay within that. You don't have things internally working against you.
Here's my evidence for that. When I feed people the right food and the right supplements when they're doing the 40 Years of Zen program, they can do 2.5 times more of this deep computer-assisted meditation before they just get tired. If I don't feed them right, they can't do the work. It would take them 3 weeks.
Wow.
Okay. I have to know what is the fuel, because I was going to talk to you about food. I know kale is your sworn enemy, all the oxalates and everything like that. But I really want the lowdown on this.
I'll walk you through the food thing.
Okay.
Is food medicine?
I want to talk about one thing before we get to the food thing.
Okay.
Yes, food's medicine. People look at 40 Years and they go, wait, this is like for senior executives, it's expensive. I'm taking the neurofeedback technology from that, and I have 28 locations of Upgrade Labs, which is my human upgrade facility, and we're putting half-hour sessions of neurofeedback. I can't do all the deep teaching of meditation, advanced, spiritual stuff during that time, but I can help you taste the state. So part of being in 40 Years of Zen is we'll be able to help thousands and thousands of people with just a monthly membership like a health club access the most advanced neurofeedback that I know how to make. So just accessibility is important. And if you can't do that, you can do breath work instead of just meditating, right? And if you're just meditating because it's free, well, then try adding something else in that you don't have to pay for. And it's really important that everything I'm talking about, I'm going to the extremes, and there's always a level that's free. And it works better than what you're doing if you're not doing anything. And so this is not about rich people getting powerful. This is about us discovering stuff that's difficult so we can make it available.
And it's available.
It's actually accessible for everyone. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so important. I think this is stuff that people don't even know exists. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think this is information and the stuff that you share. So many people get themselves in a way or in a state they're feeling bad. As simple as waking up is hard, and they don't know what to do. They don't know that it could be these things that could help them. You think it's something bigger than that. You make it so big, like, oh, it's so hard and there's just no way to fix it. But there really are beautiful small things that you can do consistently that change your freaking life.
Here's the problem, though. I've interviewed 1,200 people on my show. And I've written 3,000 articles and 10,000 social media posts and 8 books, and half of them New York Times bestsellers. And I don't know how many other interviews like this I've done. So that's about a 2-year college degree worth of studying biohacking. Just listen. Who's going to do that? Only someone who's really, really desperate like I was. So at my conference, the biohacking conference that's coming up here in Dallas, I'm going to be announcing an AI tool that's based on all of that learning, because what people really want is they just want to know what to do.
Yeah.
So
it can be
the first step?
Dave, when you don't have your brain, it can be overwhelming.
Well, that's
man.
overwhelming. My brain and
That's
AI.
amazing.
So
Stop it right now. I'm so excited.
So what does this mean? Tell us.
Yes.
So if you want to sign up for this, it's totally free. Just get on the list to be the first people to get it. I will teach you to be young.com.
All right.
I will teach you to be young.com.
I'm in.
So literally that just puts you at the front of the line. And so this is about looking at whatever we know about you. And that includes, like, you fill out a little survey, but also do you have like wearables, lab testing, whatever you got. And then what do you want? Like, it turns out this person may care about fertility, and this person may want to be like the most ripped ever, and this person wants to live forever, and this person wants to be the smartest. They're different goals. So who are you and what do you care about? And based on all of the biohacking knowledge, all the medical stuff that I know, all the spiritual stuff, what is the most likely to work for you, and how do you measure that it's working? So you can stop doing it if I'm wrong, and I'll tell you the next most likely. That includes what's cheapest, what takes the least amount of time, and what takes the least amount of suffering. So this is a way to not have to read and listen to all this stuff, because I think most people have work to do to make the world a better place. And you shouldn't have to spend your life studying how to be healthy. We just kind of broke the environment, but we'll fix that. So back to food.
Yeah.
I love that, though. I love everything that you just said. And there's free resources, and they're going to be able to take these steps to feel better, be younger, so that they can do their work in the world.
Beautiful and amazing.
I love that you're doing that for people.
A lot of people are so triggered by, the world's going to end, whether it's whichever political party you don't like, and I don't like either of them. But
I think many people feel the same.
I'm sure you're not alone on that one.
Yeah, 42% of people don't have a party anymore, so I'm not alone. But so it's not about that. Or maybe you're triggered by, this carbon thing, which is a problem. I've actually wrote the first check that eventually became Elon Musk's $100 million carbon capture X Prize. It was a $50,000 check. It wasn't $100 million. I'm not that kind of high roller, right?
Okay.
That's an Elon level thing.
I was just going to ask you for $100 million, so I'm glad that you put that out there first.
But I'm saying, I care about that stuff. But that's a 50 or 60 year problem. So a lot of people are feeling completely helpless and overwhelmed because there's all these things you don't have any control over, and all of a sudden food's really expensive. Half of families don't have $1,000 for emergency expenses right now, right? Still, there are many choices you can make every morning, every day that are free. And if you just know how to make one choice better than another, you get more of your energy back. You get more of your energy back, you have more control over yourself and more control over your circumstances.
You do better.
And you're nicer to your kids, even if you're not perfect. I'm not perfect with my kids, but just anytime you can do it, you do it. And now we get into the food thing. So what should you eat? Are you guys ready? Do I need like a trigger warning here?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I need a notebook is what I need. So if you could pause for a second. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, trigger warning, all good. But I just want to pull out something that you said, because I think it reframes the way that people look, because there's diet culture is crazy, and it's polarized, and it's the vegans and the carnivores, and then the misinformation, but what you're talking about is not just the exact things or how to be the most successful. You're talking about energy and getting your energy back,
That's all that matters.
That being success.
All that matters. If your energy's back, you have the energy to be happy. And if you have no energy, it's very hard to be happy.
So simple. That's such a simple concept.
I know we're going to get to the food thing in a second, but we have such a massive mental health crisis here in America. And do you think that, and there's so many people that are on medication for it, and it's not to take away from people that are on medication, but do you feel like if they were to take, if anyone struggling with mental health were to take these steps and to understand energy, food, exercise, all the things that we're talking about, that it would help with their mental health? That we would find depression and anxiety wouldn't be quite so high?
There's abundant medical evidence that when people remove toxins and get the right foods, the right micronutrients, the right minerals in their diet, that their depression, anxiety, and even some of the more difficult things like bipolar, it goes away or it dramatically reduces. And what's missing from our conversation there is we think it's chosen behaviors or we think it's something wrong in the brain. No. What's going on here is that sometimes 70% of the anxiety you feel isn't because of past trauma, although that's always a factor. It's not because you thought something mean. It's because your body was misfiring. It's dysfunctional. Your cells are literally terrified because they're full of toxins. They're made out of the wrong materials, and they cannot make enough energy to sustain life. That's why our fertility rate is falling so dramatically.
Right.
So if your body is living in a constant state of malnourishment, of course you're going to feel emotional anxiety and depression. And then you're going to look for a cause. You're not going to know that because you're not supposed to know what's going on inside your body. You're going to look around and you're going to blame your boss. You're going to blame the guy who cut you off in traffic. You're going to blame your kids or your spouse or whatever. You blame yourself. But this is a biochemical problem. And it's one that is not that hard to solve for most people. Some people, it's really hard. I was a hard case. It took me a long time to figure it out. For most of us, though, especially with the new testing, even the stuff that's part of the I Will Teach You to Be Young, we can find what's missing relatively easily. And sometimes, in fact, a lot of the time, we're just lacking high-quality protein. And that's what the trigger warning was. The way something tastes is not relevant. Some people say, oh, I like it. heroin addicts like heroin. It doesn't mean they should eat it. It's just not relevant.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel after you eat it is all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And animal protein is 3 times more bioavailable than plant-based protein. I don't care if they 3D print it to look like a steak. It's not the same ingredients. It doesn't have the same effect on your brain. We have an epidemic of people who are malnourished of high-quality protein. They don't eat enough protein, and the protein they're eating is low-quality plant protein, which is always highly processed industrial food. Because if you're eating whole foods plant protein, you ate 3 pounds of beans to get enough protein, and then you farted all the time, and like no one can eat 3 pounds of beans every day and be happy. So you're either malnourished of protein, right, or you're eating an industrial plant protein, or you eat an ethically raised animal. And this is important because dairy protein, if you're not allergic to it, it works better than pea protein or hemp protein or even worse, soy protein. Look, I love animals. I built a regenerative farm on Vancouver Island. I've raised cows and pigs and sheep and chickens. I've slaughtered some of them. I haven't slaughtered a cow. And I've eaten the animals I've raised. And it is a sacred connection that we have with our food animals when we do it with respect. And when people say, but I don't want to kill animals, I'll tell you about my walnut tree. I've never eaten a walnut. It's in the front yard. Beautiful walnuts are growing. My little kids, they're like, Dad, we're going to have walnuts. And then they all disappear one day. And we're like, so mad. So we started watching. Between the crows and the squirrels, they eat all of the walnuts. So my kids, if you want the walnuts, we're going to have to shoot and trap all the squirrels and shoot the crows. By the way, crows are really smart. You don't want to shoot them.
Very smart.
They mate for life. And that's just not nice.
Yeah.
So we never had a walnut, ever, even one time. We tried like wrapping things around. The crows untie knots to get to them.
Yeah. Such smart creatures.
Right.
Beautiful.
So they got the walnuts. The reality is that if you're eating a loaf of bread, the number of lives that were taken for that loaf of bread is thousands of animals. The thing that cuts the grain in the field, the big tractors, they chop up baby deer and turtles and frogs. But they do it less now because we've sterilized the land where there's nothing living anymore. It's just like sand with chemical fertilizers holding up stalks. This is not a low death or a low suffering thing. And I didn't ever think about death per calories in food until I was in Tibet. And I made fun of the head lama at one of the monasteries because he said, no killing. I'm like, you have a yak skin on your prayer pole. You're a hypocrite. Yeah. Buddhists love debate. So this wasn't like a rude behavior. He literally laughed in my face. He goes, one death feeds everyone. I'm like, ooh. So if you decide to eat an animal from a local farmer especially, you say, but that's expensive. No, if you have a freezer and you buy a quarter of a cow, it's not more expensive.
It's actually,
And
which is what a lot of people do.
That's what I do.
Yeah. People like that need grass fed, they'll literally go and pick out a cow and it'll be slaughtered and they'll freeze it and it'll last them.
And if you're buying the cheaper cuts and all that stuff, it's not expensive. You can have it shipped to your house even. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're saying, wait, my food quality went up. And maybe you're saying, look, that's out of reach for me right now. An industrially raised cow, if you just, when you put it on your plate and you just put your hands over it and offer some gratitude, animals come to this planet. Our food animals, the ones we have a sacred agreement for thousands of years with, they're here to receive gratitude. We nourish them and they nourish us. And it's a spiritual contract. And it's just okay as long as you show respect. So if you can't afford grass-fed, that's fine. Industrial meat isn't as good for you, but it's a hell of a lot better for you than industrial soy protein. So fetishizing plants because they didn't directly kill animals, even though they kill more animals, I don't think that's in integrity. It's lying to yourself to feel good about something.
That's so interesting and such a different and very eye-opening perspective. I'm not vegan. We have we eat meat. We eat everything. But every now and then I do think, oh my God, this poor animal, and I feel guilt for it because I deeply love animals. But what you're talking about is so true too. Just because you're vegan, it doesn't mean that no animals are dying for your food on your plate. No one is necessarily better than the other to feel like you're above anyone because you have a different diet. That's so very interesting to look at.
Yeah, I never thought about the fact that there's so many deaths because of the grain and all the animals that have been killed going into that. What about the people who would say, well, there's all these studies that red meat there's a correlation with more cancer and colon cancer. Like, what about that?
It's interesting. So I'm coming this as a former vegan. I don't have a dog in this fight other than science and how you feel. There are no studies that show that properly raised and prepared red meat increases any of those things. In fact, they decrease those things in studies. What they find is they say, when people eat meat, this is what happens. And then you look at what they define as meat. A Subway sandwich with 2 ounces of God knows what meat-like substance on it counts as meat.
Hot dogs.
A McNugget is meat.
And we know this now. Like there's the meat at the cheaper supermarkets. It's actually glued together to look like a certain type of steak, but it's actually different cuts of meat, right?
Totally. Yeah, meat glue.
And it's meat glue, and it's filled with things to make it look like fat and like a juicy steak, pumped full of water and all sorts of stuff to make it look good in a supermarket. I totally get that.
Yum.
Yeah. And even that is a lot better than a McNugget.
Oh,
Right,
well, that's not
right.
even meat. Let's be real. That's
but
like...
in these studies that are saying meat's bad for you, they're looking at the lowest quality food, and they don't look at what else you're eating with it.
Right.
And we have plenty of evidence. I've eaten only grass-fed meat probably 95% of the time for the last 15 years. I eat 200 grams of animal protein a day, 1 gram for every pound that I weigh. And I measure my longevity markers. I'm aging at 72% the rate of average people.
Wow.
My lifestyle input to my age, it's called extrinsic aging in lab tests. It's 19 and a half years younger than my current age. So animal protein does not do this. If you burn animal protein, just like burned Brussels sprouts are bad for you and burned steak is bad for you. But to say that
Damn it, I love crispy Brussels sprouts
I know,
though, Dave.
sorry.
Come on. You just ruined that for me.
When you say burn, do you mean brown or do you mean like
Blackened,
black?
yeah. Because
blackened.
the charcoal on it, right? There's something about it.
There's something to do with charcoal as well, but just burned any kind of food is, if it's blackened, it's not good for you.
Okay.
But what they're really doing is they're combining junk food and they're combining highly processed, chemically treated foods and saying those cause an increase in stomach cancer. But when people eat properly cooked red meat and a normal diet, none of the bad things happen. So what's going on here is a lot of industry interests. If they can convince you to eat peasant food, that's the lowest possible cost, and pay extra because you think it's healthy, then they win and you lose and they don't care. And here's a perfect example: brown rice.
And oats, right?
And oats too, but man, brown rice, that is so dumb. It has
It's like the biggest sham ever. And
Yeah.
now everybody, thankfully, is going back
But
to
why?
white rice.
Why is it a shame?
It's a sham because it contains massive amounts of arsenic
Yes, I've heard
on the
that.
outside, and it contains lectins that irritate your gut. And this is why everyone who eats brown rice gets gas and has a food baby.
Yeah.
And you go to India or China or Japan, anywhere that they've eaten rice, they're like, only the poorest peasants eat brown rice because they can't afford white rice. Because brown rice has more energy in it, but it has more toxins in it. So as soon as you can afford it, you polish the rice to get rid of the toxic outer layer and eat the stuff inside that doesn't have anything bad. And so you see, every time I talk about this, they're like, what is this white guy doing talking about rice? But he's right, because brown rice is not a good choice. And so we've actually paid extra for brown rice at some sushi places because we've been sold the idea that peasant food is morally superior to nutrient food.
Because they make more money off of it.
Yeah. And so this is a problem. And I want people to feel good. And honestly, if you can eat brown rice for a month and all your markers are improved and you eat white rice and they're not, more power to you. That's just not how it works.
Stick to brown.
I had a friend the other day who was sort of in the pre-diabetic range, and from the outside you would never think that. He put on a continuous glucose monitor, and he said, what really surprised me? First of all, oatmeal really surprised me.
Stuff is nasty.
Just spiked my blood sugar.
So bad, yeah.
But he said, white rice, brown rice, spiked just the same.
Yep.
That there was really no difference, and he said that surprised me. I guess because of what the information that he had, he was like, well, it
Believed
should
brown
be
was
different.
better.
And what you want to do whenever you eat a carbohydrate, and I am not I really popularized keto as a temporary tool to focus your brain and lose weight, but I always said, don't stay in ketosis, it'll break you.
Right.
And same thing with carnivore. Long-term carnivore, I don't think is good for you. You want to do a carnivore cleanse for a week or a month, good for you. Right? Doing it for long periods of time, you're probably going to run into problems. Some people don't, but it's unusual. So what most people do is they start out carnivore and then one day they wake up and say, why don't I have some fruit and some honey and some carbs and sometimes white rice or whatever? And that's kind of what I do. I'm not carnivore, but I eat clean carbs and I eat enough animal protein, enough fat to be healthy. I eat some olive oil, but not too much. And you can feel really good on that diet. But how would you know about brown rice versus white rice? Well, getting the data from your continuous glucose monitor is a good thing. But since all of us are going to eat carbs, most of us are never going to monitor our blood sugar in real time. Here's what to do. Eat protein first, then eat your vegetables, and then eat your rice or your dessert. And then it works and you don't get a spike. And if you're worried about a spike because you're obese or you have high blood sugar, after you eat, go for a walk for 20 minutes and you won't have high blood sugar. It's really easy. You don't have to be a massive biohacker scientist.
So the order that you eat your food in will also help with like your spike in gluten.
Absolutely. And protein has to come first because most of us are so protein deficient. You should be eating 1 gram of animal protein per pound of body weight. It's hard to do that.
It's hard to do
That's
that.
very hard.
That's a lot of meat.
And if you're on Ozempic or something similar, you have to do that because you'll be nauseous all the time, but you eat that first. Otherwise, you lose all your muscle mass.
Right.
So I'd rather see people be on weight loss drugs and lose all that extra fat because it's so unhealthy to be obese. But if you're not eating enough protein when you do it, you lose the fat and then you have no muscle and no fat.
Right.
So you have to really focus on protein. And we used to believe that you could only handle 30 grams of protein per meal, and that's been completely disproven. You can have 50 grams of protein in a meal if you want to. So have a scoop of whey protein with your meal or have an extra half a chicken breast and then have some broccoli and then have some rice, but you won't want as much. And then the rice will barely affect you when it comes to your blood sugar.
Someone from your background, I'm so curious because you brought it up and it's such a big conversation right now. It is the Ozempic conversation. But someone with your knowledge and your background on what do you think of something like that?
When Ozempic first came out, I interviewed one of the lead researchers on the initial research on my show. We talked about it. Ozempic in very low doses is a longevity drug. Affecting the GLP-1 pathways will make you live longer. So I said, I'm going to try Ozempic for 1 week to do an interview on it. I don't need to lose weight. I don't want to lose weight. 6% is a little bit too lean for me, but I felt like I had morning sickness all week. It was horrible. But when I look at the metabolic benefits, people say, but you might have a side effect. Well, if you go skiing, you might hit a tree, but you still go skiing because the side effects of Ozempic are kind of like hitting a tree. So
I mean, when I came to this country, the drug commercials and then the speed talking at the end of all the things that might kill you. And you know, like everything has a side effect, but people eat those.
Totally. And they don't even put side effects on half the industrial
Tylenol.
food.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, God. Tylenol is so bad for you.
It's so bad.
So with Ozempic, losing the weight is most important. If you're obese and you can afford it or your insurance covers it, do it. But there's 2 important things that you need to do. One of them is you eat that protein like your life depends on it. I don't care if it's beef, which is best, or chicken breasts or something, but you measure how much you're eating and you get 1 gram of protein for every pound that you want to be. So if you need to lose 100 pounds like I had to lose, I weighed 300 pounds, I would eat 200 grams of protein because I wanted to weigh 200 pounds. You do that like your life depends on it because it does.
How interesting.
And you do that, and then twice a week, even if you don't want to, even if you've never done it before, do some squats and do some push-ups, and ideally a little bit more exercise. But you need to stimulate your muscles twice a week, and you need to eat the protein.
Yeah.
And then you'll shed all the fat, and you won't have lost your muscle. But you want to get old really quick, lose all your muscle.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's what they talk about, right?
Which is why
Ozempic
people
face
that
and
lose a
stuff.
bunch of weight, then all of a sudden they start getting to that point where they look like they're...
In fact, I have something for you and listeners, if it's all right to drop it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, please.
I made a biohacker's guide. It's all this stuff to do if you're going to use any of these kind of drugs to support your biology. And I interviewed a cell biologist to come up with this. And you go to daveasprey.com/GLP1, which is what these drugs are called. But there's about 5 things you can do besides protein and making sure you lift something so that your body doesn't lose all the things it should keep during that. And then the benefits of losing that weight are life-changing. Your brain turns back on. You get your energy back. Your body doesn't hurt all the time. But it's expensive because you have to buy new pants. And I've been through all this.
Oh, damn it, shopping. That just sounds terrible.
Thank you for giving our listeners that. I think
Yes,
that's really
thank you
helpful
so
because I was going
much.
to ask you, where do you even start on this path? And you've given us 2 things where we can start. I want to do the 5-day. I have to ask you before
You can be skeptical. Ask me the hard stuff.
we hop off to the bonus segment here. I see you in the cold plunge all the time. We just got a cold plunge. My wife goes in it. She loves it. Benefits for people who are like, I don't know, because I always talk to Brian and Sharna about it. Sharna's like, I'll try it. Brian's like, hard no.
It is pretty.
You're a hard no.
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a hard
Wow.
no. It is, yeah. I know I should. I can't wait to hear the benefits of it, but it's so.
Just because it hurts.
It hurts so bad.
There's two main benefits that are totally unrelated. One of them is the metabolic benefits. Mm-hmm. It's like lifting weights or any kind of exercise. It puts a brief stress on the body to make it so the body is better able to warm itself up. So those little mitochondria we talked about earlier, now they're better at doing their job. And there's some cold shock protein, some anti-inflammatory stuff. Okay, that's well established. But the real reason you do it is that humans, for thousands of years, depending on what culture you're from, there are practices, usually daily practices, of brief exposure to pain on purpose that you cause. And it could be something like eating wasabi. Monks used to whip themselves in the morning. It's called self-flagellation. And there's people now who go out and get tattoos when they're depressed, and then they're not depressed anymore. Right. The value of cold plunge is that when you force yourself to do something that hurts for 3 minutes, the change in dopamine receptors and dopamine signaling in your brain is so profound that all the things that would have made you unhappy during that day, all the things that looked impossible, they don't look impossible anymore. So the value you're getting is that it hurt and you were in charge and you made yourself do it anyway. It is a spiritual practice from doing that. And
fuck you, David, for making me feel guilty
I
over
fucking
not
love this
doing
though,
this.
because everyone's all like, the hot and cold and the blood circulation and the things, and they're all things you can't see, right? And you don't feel the benefit of straight away. But this explanation that you're giving me is like, no, your day will be infinitely better.
Which is why I'm angry about it.
This is what I was telling you and in season 1, and you looked at me like I was
mad.
crazy.
I'm gonna be like, baby, we're getting a cold plunge.
Right?
So tomorrow, deliver it. Let's go.
We already have like a company and a thing, and she's looked at it, and we've looked at pictures, and I'm like,
there's one alternative. If you just accept you need to do something every day that hurts in order just for 3 minutes, and you need to be in charge of it, and that affects your happiness and your motivation, and it makes mountains look like small hills.
But there's
You want me to whip
everything
you?
else
I can
is
whip
that's
you
your
in the
other
morning.
life. Yeah,
I can get a whip, baby. I got this.
I was going there. So what you need to do is you need to either get a good spanking or do a cold plunge. Your
no
choice.
more morning sex. We're going to do morning
just
whipping.
for fun, just not
He's
like
ignoring me.
Spanking in a cold
life or
plunge.
death.
And it's like a whole new level.
Too much.
Spanking in a cold
That's
plunge.
for pros, right? but even those practices, they're there not because it's like some sort of weird, cruel thing. It's a somatic felt experience of brief pain, which changes your dopamine signaling. It's the same thing as getting a tattoo or, all these other practices that people do, even CrossFit. Like, I'm going to beat the crap out of myself right now.
Right.
But it's because you experience the pain.
And then it feels great afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's endorphins, but it's not just endorphins. It's your dopamine. It's about happiness. And it sounds so counterintuitive and kind of stupid almost. And it's not about like abusing yourself or being mean to yourself or hating yourself. It's about just letting your body know you're in charge and that it's okay to feel a brief bit of pain. And that after that, it just calms down and goes, okay, I'm still safe. And our bodies are dumb. They're just really fast and they're responding to things. And the science behind this comes from a book called Hurts So Good. And this is written by a science journalist. And she actually went through and she's like, okay, I'm a professional masochist, not professional, but she's like spilling her stuff in the first chapter and saying, I just want to know why. And she says, maybe it's because I was a ballet dancer. And she goes to chili pepper eating competitions and all these different things. And she looks at all of the historical stuff. And then she says, and then there's the biohackers and their cold plunges. They think they're so different. It's the same thing as, whatever she does with her spankings or with eating hot peppers till you cry. And
crazy.
I love cold plunges, and until I realized I was allergic to them, I would just eat habaneros just straight, like on an omelet. The burning in my mouth was so good, right? It like burns, and then you feel good, right? Like eating wasabi.
See, I'm not with you. You lost me there. Anything like above a mild spice, I got to tap out. I don't want to cry while I eat.
Something in me, I was like, man, I'm just happy.
If I'm
going to
cold plunge, you're going to start eating peppers. That's just the way it's going to.
That is wildly unfair.
But it's not. It's we're both experiencing like near death, painful things for 3 minutes.
Can I whip you while you're in the cold plunge?
Can you? Wait, okay, so now what?
That sounds like an OnlyFans thing.
Right. I know this is going.
Sorry, I got carried away for a second.
Join us at oldish.com where you can see me being whipped in a cold plunge.
Yeah. Wow. We really went there. I don't want this to end. It's so good.
I say though, we should now jump into our after the show thing for our members and all of that. Thank everybody for watching.
We're going to continue the conversation.
Dave, you've been amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to continue this.
We'll be fine.
You're not going anywhere.
Thanks for being
You're not allowed.
So thank you everyone for listening. Head on over to oldish.com to find out all about the different tiers. Oldishpodcast.com to find out about all the tiers and the ways you can see this if you're not able to, and you can join us for the after the show. So we'll see you there.
Sweet.
Hey, if you're going through something right now, if you need additional support, then please reach out to me at randyspelling.com/help or go to my Instagram at randyspelling. Thanks.